Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, today we are going to talk about real estate like we always do.
But
However,
first, we're going to do something else.
Today is...
Your birthday.
Today's my birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to me.
All right.
Okay, now that we got that over with. All right, so we are going to talk about how new construction is going to affect the next maybe 5 years of the housing market.
Wow, that's a big projection right there.
And we're going to do that by looking what the last 5 years looked like.
Okay.
With the idea that it likely won't change much. And we'll explain it, and then we're going to look at the breakdown of where these homes are being built and what types of homes are being built, meaning is it single-family homes, is it duplexes, is it fourplexes, or is it apartment complexes?
Okay.
Okay? All right. So we're just going to jump right in to this chart that was painstakingly took months by the team. We have a whole team here that just does graphics design, and this is new residential construction. Now, what you see are three lines on here. This chart goes back to 2019, so it's the last 5 years. And this is, the blue line is permits, the black line is housing starts and completion. So, what comes first in the building process? Permits, starts, or completions?
Permits.
Wait, but doesn't starts make sense that starts. You start the process with the start.
No, the start is the groundbreaking.
Oh, the start is the starting of building the house.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you'll notice on this chart that we're pretty much we kind of right around 15. It says 1,500, but this is in thousands. This is 1.5 million. Now, Juana, this is all residential construction. Does this also include apartments?
It does. So this is, so what we want to say is that when we're talking about housing starts, we're talking about doors. So think of it this way. So if you have a building and it has, let's say, 100 apartments, that's 100 doors. So that would be 100 units. If you have a single family home, the front door is the only door we count, and that counts as one door.
Okay. What the Crash Bros have done is they have shown you these numbers for now, and then they've compared only single family homes the previous year and saying, oh, there's going to be 600,000 more houses built, and the market can't absorb that. It's going to crash the housing market. Okay, that's not true. What's interesting about this one is that you can see the little dip way over there. That actually was just the lockdown period. There wasn't a lot going on. It kind of slowed down a little bit, but we pretty much have had a relatively steady amount of housing activity, both multifamily and single family, for the last 5 years. What are some constraints before we go to the next chart? Why won't this just ramp up? Like, why won't new home builders just double in, next year or the year after? The economy, we have a soft landing, the economy takes off 5 or 6 years. Are they going to triple building?
They're not going to triple building.
Oh, are they going to double building?
No, they're not going to double building.
Why not? Why don't they want to put as much money in their pocket as possible?
That's exactly why it won't happen.
Okay.
That's exactly what won't happen, because they do want to put as much money as possible in their pockets. So right now they have figured out the Goldilocks, right, of supply and demand and building the least number of units for the most profit and the least risk, right? Because risk is an important factor here. The other constraints, as you put it, are land, right? Because we're not making any more of it. So depending on where you are in the country, that could be a huge constraint, like it is here in Las Vegas. The land that surrounds Las Vegas and even pockets within Las Vegas are owned by the federal government. And so the federal government would have to sell that land. The federal government does so sporadically, kind of full moon, the planets have to align. Nobody's really quite figured out what the schedule is for doing that. So it's basically very sporadic. It's somewhere between 18 months and a little over 2 years between land sales. So it's a long time, right? The other constraint is labor. So labor is a constraint because we've talked about this before. The average construction worker is in his 50s. So, these people, again, are not getting any younger. And there's less of them as every year passes because, of course, they retire or they get hurt, whatever, and they're no longer part of the pool. So that's a constraint. Materials is another constraint, right? So the supply chain, while it's recovered considerably since the it's still not what it needs to be for vendors. If you've needed parts for anything, you know what I'm talking about. You know, we've had people who have been waiting months for maybe a part for a car, a part for an appliance, especially appliances. We've had it to where appliances have had to be replaced, not because they needed to be replaced, but because we simply couldn't get the parts. So that's a constraint. So all kinds of constraints like that. Money is another constraint, right? Because builders have to go out and borrow money in order to finance the project. So of course we've been in a higher interest rate environment, so that's been a constraint. So there are all kinds of constraints playing in here. But the biggest one, like I said, is the one that we kind of started with, is that builders have figured out what the Goldilocks formula is to build the least number of units, make the most profit, and minimize risk.
Okay, with that being said, we are going to jump over to the next chart. Now this is kind of a complex chart. I'm going to talk you through it, explain what it is. Now, on that left column, that is the period, meaning the month. And the number you see for total is not the number of completions in that month. That is the annualized number of completions, meaning if they built that much each month, that's how many they would have built in the next year. So if you go all the way to the bottom there, where it says August in the darker font, bold, it's 1.475 million, right? Now that's total for the United States. If you go over to where it says 1 unit, that means single family homes. That's what 1 unit is. And there were 967,000 built. Now that number hasn't changed much over the last few years. Now, Juana, if the government built, or not the government, private enterprise building 967,000 homes, we don't actually add 967,000 homes. Why is that?
Right. So just like normal people, right? If you spend some, but you earn some, you know, what matters is what you get to keep, right? Well, it's the same thing with homes. We build so many homes, but we lose homes to fires, natural disasters, obsolescence, you know, whatever. So we lose eminent domain, whatever. They get torn down, they get whatever. So basically, so if you build, you know, 900,000+ homes and you lose somewhere between 150 and 200,000 homes, that's how you end up to somewhere around 700 and change, right?
Okay, yeah. Now that number is going to be pretty steady for the next 5 years. The builders aren't just going to magically find a bunch of labor and a bunch of land and magically find lumber and all this building materials. The other thing too to remember is this: if builders start deciding we want to build more, they're going to pay more for the goods because the suppliers who make the sheetrock and everything else can't just magically crank production. So they do have limits to growth. There are limits, okay?
You know what's interesting about that is I was having lunch with a new home builder a week ago. And she and I were discussing this, and I asked her, I said, well, okay, talk to me about this. You know, do we have standing inventory? I mean, are you guys making deals? And it was super interesting, you know, kind of her take on it, because obviously she's aware of everything that you know, her builder is building in the valley. And what I heard from her was that basically there's no real standing inventory. Now, are there some communities that are moving faster than others? Of course. But by and large, there's really not a substantial amount of standing inventory, and that they are definitely metering this out. So they are constantly going over their numbers, you know, slowing down, speeding up, depending on what the demand is. They are still buying down rates, by the way. But so builders have, it's to say that builders have figured out the Goldilocks, you know, scenario for themselves is really not even doing them justice. I mean, they have this so dialed in, it's scary.
Yeah. The next one is the 2 to 4 unit. Now, these are what you duplexes, fourplexes, things like that. 57,000 total doors, not 57,000 fourplexes, 57,000 doors. And then 5 units or more is 451,000. These are apartments, right? Same thing with apartments. Sometimes apartments get torn down, they build a new one. So these are not net new. This is obviously barely enough to keep up with the population growth we know about. This doesn't address population growth we don't know about. Conservative estimates are there between 11 and 15 million people we don't even know about. You call them undocumented, you can call them whatever you want, but they are here, and they are, of course, also competing for space as well. And then at the very bottom, it shows the year-over-year change from from July and August of this year from August of last year. You can see the percentage changes. Now, Juana, what is this going to look like? So interest rates dropping. Mm-hmm. The common thought is if interest rates drop, it'll be easier for buyers because it'll be more affordable. But if we lock in the the amount of inventory, and all we do is add buyers, what does that do to prices?
So again, supply and demand, we have more demand because we have more buyers enticed by the lower interest rates.
Okay.
We have a consistent supply, so supply is not increasing, but the number of buyers are increasing. So that's going to obviously cause prices to increase to match the amount of demand. So you're going to have multiple offers. You're going to have sellers being more optimistic, as I like to say, mm-hmm. And you're going to have buyers be more frantic. So you'll definitely see a lot of anxiety on the part of buyers, trying to make something work. And the unfortunate thing is that when interest rates are higher, buyers have more flexibility because while the purchase price is set, their interest rate isn't, because with time they can refinance and get a lower payment. But when you're entering into the property at a higher price, that price is not changing. So even though they have a better interest rate, they're coming in at a higher price, so maybe their payment is the same as it would have been at a lower interest rate, but there's no possibility of reducing that payment because they've already got the low interest rate.
What about interest rates dropping, people deciding now I can sell the house and move, mm-hmm. or sell the house and upgrade to a bigger house or a smaller house? Doesn't that add a bunch more houses to the mix?
No, so that's kind of even across the board, right? Because if I sell a house and buy a house, that doesn't create more inventory.
Okay.
That creates more transactions. So it will show up in the numbers as more transactions, but that does not create more inventory.
Right, because you're adding another buyer who's just going to compete and buy a house.
Right.
And the other thing, too, you have to say is if you're a buyer and you've barely got enough money, like you're just trying to put the minimum down to get a loan, the last thing you want is a bunch of people selling their houses and moving because they all have equity.
Right.
And you're going to be competing against somebody who's like, oh, I just sold my $800,000 house. I'm going to buy this $500,000 house, pay cash for it. Mm-hmm. And you're coming in with, oh, I'm putting down 8%, with an FHA loan. Mm-hmm. And they're going to, the seller, who's the seller going to pick? The cash offer or the FHA loan?
Right. So sellers are going to pick something that they're going to find more likely to close, right? And it's more likely that a cash purchaser will close than one with a loan because obviously, while they both have contingencies as far as their due diligence, one has a finance contingency and one does not. So the one that does not have the finance contingency because they've got the money sitting there ready to go is going to be much more attractive to a seller. And what I want to point out is that a seller might, not every time, but might be willing to consider a slightly, very slightly lower offer from a cash buyer than from somebody with a lender, particularly because somebody with a lender perhaps is asking for closing costs. So now when you kind of look at it dollar to dollar, the seller is actually ending up with the same amount of money, but does not bear the risk of the buyer not qualifying for the loan.
The other thing I thought that was interesting on this is if you look up at the top, it shows the 4 geographic regions of the country, Northeast, Midwest, South, and West. And if you go all the way to the bottom, it shows you the changes from either year over year or from July. And if you go all the way to the bottom, that's the year over year change. But in the West, the total number of building completions compared to last year is down 17% total. Now, a lot of those were multifamilies. We had a big multifamily boom for about a year. The Crash Bro said a year ago this would crash the housing market. Surprisingly, home prices went up. Literally, whatever the Crash Bro say, just do the opposite and you're going to be fine. But what's really interesting, if you look at this, we only built 200,000 homes a year in the whole West Coast. This is California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, all these states, only 200,000 homes. Where were most of the homes built by far? Over half the homes were built in the South. 574,000 of the 967,000, the South. The South has been boomtown. Now, you can make an argument that if the economy, a lot of people are moving to the South. The South is naturally growing. It grows every year. This election year, the two states that gained electoral votes were Texas and Florida. They gained 3 electoral votes. So they get more votes. California lost votes. Northeast states lost some votes, right? So you have natural migration. So you have 2 things happening demographically. You have people coming into the country and being born. That adds people. And then you have people moving around the country. So you get this whammy effect where maybe the Northeast states don't change too much in population, but the southern states get bigger. And then they have to figure out how many people is a congressional district and do that, right? So yes, there is a lot of building in the South. There's certainly some areas that probably got overbuilt, that there may be soft prices for the next few years. They will not crash. They will likely moderate a bit. We're told Florida would crash, and Florida, remember, was up like 7% or something. And then Texas was even up like 2%. And only Austin was down, I think just one metro area. But it looks like when you look at these numbers, the magic thing here is that there aren't a massive amount of single family homes that will be built. And we still have, why would a person want a single family home versus just going and living in an apartment?
Different lifestyle, right? Pure and simple. It's a completely different lifestyle.
Okay.
If you're in an apartment, that's great, depending on where you are, particularly like if you're in a big metropolitan area, like maybe New York or San Francisco or Miami, maybe an apartment living makes sense. Maybe apartment living makes sense because you don't have, 2.2 kids, a cat, a dog, and a pony. Okay, I don't know. But, so it's just a lifestyle choice. And I think part of it is kind of the romantic view that we all grow up with. Or at least some of us grew up with, of the house with the white picket fence and the 2.2 kids and the cat, the dog, and the pony kind of thing. So I don't know, but the bottom line is that most people do prefer the space that house affords, maybe the garage, maybe the yard, maybe the more relaxed atmosphere that single family homes provide that maybe closer density such as apartments lack.
Okay. All right. So what does this mean? We've seen the last 5 years of numbers. It is highly unlikely that builders, even if they wanted to, they don't even want to. They just want to maximize profit. They don't want to build a bunch of homes. They want to get the most money that they can. And they know that if they build too many homes, they'll sit around, they won't make money. They're, like you said, the builder you went out to lunch. Are they a luxury builder or just building average homes?
So it's interesting. This particular builder builds kind of the gamut from starter homes all the way to luxury homes. So that's kind of interesting.
So it's a big builder.
Yeah, it's a big national builder.
Oh, a big national builder. Okay.
Yes.
So, and they even said that there's basically nothing just sitting around. Like they don't have thousands of homes waiting to hit the market.
No. And it's interesting because this is probably the biggest builder in the valley.
Okay. And how many homes did they say they had standing inventory?
So at any time, they have about 200 homes that they are, when they say ready to deliver, they mean that they can deliver within 60 days. So basically how long it takes you to get a loan done.
And they're probably all in the MLS already.
So sort of. So yes, they are in the MLS, but they're not individually in the MLS, right?
Okay. They'll put one. If they have 3 of them that are the same, they'll put one.
Right.
To sort of drag you in and say,
right.
oh, well, we have these 3 that are basically the same.
Right. So no, they have plans A, B, C, and D. So they'll have one plan A, one plan B, one plan C, one plan D in the MLS. They're not going to have, every single one, because all they're trying to do is get people's attention with that plan. If that plan interests you, then you come in, you go, hey, we don't have that plan in this community, but we have this plan in that community, so go over there and that kind of thing. Because the sales model has changed for builders, right? You don't just have salespeople sitting in the office waiting for the buyer to come by. A lot of sales offices are by appointment only, and they can show homes not only in the community that they're primarily responsible for, but in the other communities that the builder runs.
Yeah, I will point this out. Even the biggest, like the most famous crash bros, have pivoted from the whole real estate market is whatever to now they're going on. I saw one of them on one of the CNBC or something like that. And they were talking about, there's these 3 markets out of like 320 that we're looking at that they're likely to decline. And it's like, we went from the whole thing as a house of cards that's going to collapse on itself to, there's just 3 markets where they probably built too many homes and maybe it was overbought and the supply and demand just got a little out of balance, but we're probably not going to see long term. There are no massive things that would deflate housing. If anything, all of this supports housing probably just continue to go up with a combination of inflation and excess demand.
Right. And then let's not forget that there are programs that also get people into homes that maybe could otherwise not get into homes. So again, that adds more buyers to the pool.
What if you gave everyone, say, I'm just going to pick a random number, $25,000. I don't know where I came up with that. And said, you all have $25,000 to go buy a home because they're so expensive. Now you're a seller and you were going to sell your home for $400,000, and everyone shows up with the ability to put $25,000 more, and you have 5 offers. What do you think you might end up selling the house for?
$450.
$450. So you're going to just double it. You're going to roll the dice and see who will say, the 25 is a freebie because I'm getting that for free.
Right.
And I'll add on another 25.
Right. So basically, because you're creating so much demand, you're creating such a friend. And that's what I was saying before.
But it doesn't actually. Here's the thing: any incentive, $25,000, doesn't incentivize more building. It just puts more money into the pocket of the seller. You're just transferring the money into some other person.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's completely fine. But it doesn't have the results that they're looking for. I think more to the point, I think there are better ways to deal with that, and we've talked about that before. And better ways to deal with that is by making it easier to build homes, by making it easier regarding zoning and permitting and all that, and that makes it easier. But even with all of that, at the end of the day, the builders have a fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders to return a decent return on investment. So that's really one of the issues that we're contending with. Now, not every builder is publicly owned, but everybody's got investors. I don't care who you are. Everybody's got investors. Even if the builder is the sole investor, again, he's owed a return on his investment too. And there's no reason for anybody to leave money on the table. Yeah,
no one in the housing market is trying to crash the housing market. No. They're trying to keep it stable. Only the crash bros, who are, we already found out through a secret survey that was done, surveillance and other means that are top secret, anyway, the 87% of the crash bros still live with their parents. Mm-hmm. We found that out. Yes. That was kind of interesting statistic.
Well, and I think you have confirmation.
And the other 13%, they live in their cars. So we found out where they all live.
Well, because all the videos are from their cars.
They're either from their cars or from their parents' basement.
Yeah. All right, that's a little bit of fun.
All right.
So feel free to wish Todd a happy birthday in the comments. Remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, like the video. And if you're thinking of buying or selling in Las Vegas or elsewhere, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to chat with you about it and give you a hand. We'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.